Are you dating somebody with, bipolar disorder or any severe mental illness? Are you confused by their behavior? Are you unsure how to provide support? Are you just trying to satisfy, general curiosity? Then this video is for you. Welcome. What's up, you guys? Thank you so much for tuning into this channel. If it's your first time, welcome. If you're a regular, welcome back and all that jazz. So, if this is your first time, I started this series I think last year because I'm in my 20s, like full blown in my 20s, and dating, relationships, blah 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 is obviously part of that territory. I think that navigating your 20s in terms of dating life and love life and all of that mumbo jumbo is hard enough, so like adding bipolar disorder to it kind of makes things even more challenging, rocky, terrible. Oftentimes when I'm doing this series, I'm dogging somebody out. I mean, not necessarily. I really do try to lay off the gossip and just talk about the feelings, but sometimes, things sneak in there. Regardless, I'm always talking about how my emotions are impacted by other people's actions, or how people don't understand the severe anxiety or like the mood instability. I'm basically talking about it from my point of view and trying to get other people to kind of look inside my head. But there's also a lot of things that aren't necessarily good that I have done in the past, or I have thought of in the past, that definitely have impacted my relationships and have been my fault. And yes, it's because I'm living with bipolar disorder, but at the same time, it gets a little messy. I'm gonna start off with the mild stuff, and then we're gonna gradually get into the wild stuff. So I think the first biggest thing that I really need to start off with is that obviously this goes without saying, people with mental illness, people with bipolar disorder, people with any type of disability, handicap, blah blah blah, can live normal lives, can have love, can have the happiness, the Cinderella story, all of that great shit. I may not believe it right now because things are rough, but I deep down know that it's definitely in store, definitely a possibility for me. Having said that, I will say that if you're dating somebody with a severe mental illness, if you're dating somebody with bipolar disorder, just know that they do have a disability. Times are hard, times are rough, depending on the time of the year, depending on what they're going through. It's not necessarily like a normal relationship. Shit is hard, bruh. And I think that's a common misconception, maybe not a misconception, but something that like people don't always typically realize. Dating somebody with any like mental illness or any handicap is like not easy peasy. It takes a lot of work. One, from that person who has the disorder, because they're doing a lot to share their lives with someone else, and just a lot of sacrifices. But the person who is quote unquote normal is also giving up a lot, also sacrificing a lot, also trying to share their lives with someone who may or may not be completely stable. I say that because, everybody has mental health. Not everybody has mental illness. But because everyone does have mental health, you really do need to take care of yourself. And there is a fine line, a subjective fine line between, how much can I give to this person? I really care for them, I really love them, but are they on the right path towards recovery? And like, how can I help them in this? Are they like bringing me down? And not like, are they depressed, bringing me down, like in that type of way, but like, hey, are they like bringing drugs into my house? Are they like constantly hospitalized? Are they running up all of my financials? Like things like that. And even at times when they are, you might have the emotional availability to sort of help that person, really support that person, kind of work through the recovery process. Even in the times when it's super gross, super messy, just the shit has hit the fan and it's fucking spreading. Even in times like that, you don't necessarily have to leave that person. Maybe you have the emotional availability. It's completely subjective and completely up to you. But I think it's also important to, really recognize and acknowledge that not everybody has that type of mental capability. And there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, don't be an asshole or a dick or any of the above associated words. But coming from my perspective, especially, I'm 23 years old. Bipolar disorder is super serious, something that's super challenging, definitely takes a lot of work. Not a lot of 23-year-olds are trying to like deal with that. They're just trying to hit it and quit it. Netflix and chill. Those are the only two things I can think of. Regardless, you know what I'm saying. Yes, it sucks from my perspective, and it sucks, when things don't work out. But definitely know that like you have feelings too, you matter as well. And you know, sometimes we just can't, and it's nobody's fault but like the situations. The second thing I was thinking about was, you know, how do you approach care, and you know, what do you do when your partner doesn't want to take medication? Now, this is a tricky question. I think all of these are kind of tricky because they're all very subjective. Again, these are my experience, these are like my thoughts. Take it with a grain of salt. When it comes to medication, I don't believe that, you know, number one, that's like a non-starter. A lot of people say like, you know, once people with bipolar disorder go off their medication, they go fucking nuts, fucking insane. Yes, sometimes that's the case, but not always. Sometimes, you know, there's very concrete reasons as to why we need to go off our medications. In my case, it was like fucking killing me, y'all. So like, I could not be on it. So in my mind, medication is not like something that shuts down a relationship. I will say that as it comes to care, it differs kind of by like your relationship, you know? That I haven't really been in a super serious relationship. Again, I'm 23, where I have to, you know, bring my partner to my psychiatrist or to my therapist and really involve them fully in my recovery process. Or maybe you have just an interesting marriage, I don't know. But in general, in that realm, you know, it's definitely a conversation that's important to have at the beginning. Obviously, as feelings grow, you know, their involvement in your care or your involvement in their care continues to grow. But you really have to create an environment where both parties feel comfortable with being completely honest and being completely truthful and just being completely open about, you know, the recovery process and how everyone's feeling in it. It's not just the person with bipolar disorder who's going through it. Like, if your significant other is like how I think of a significant other, they're around you like all the time, and like they're significantly a part of your life. So guess what? They're part of the recovery process too. That's something I haven't always realized, in the sense that like I get, for whatever reason, very emotional when other people try to chime in. And when I say other people, I mean people I have dated who try to chime in, you know, on the recovery process, on like, you know, me taking medicine, and they offer their little 2 cents, and I immediately jump to, you don't know what you're talking about, you're not dealing with this, you have like no idea. And like, while that is like true, at the same time, I think I kind of jumped to that conclusion, or jumped to that initial reaction, because I felt unsafe. And it's not that anyone like who I've dated in the past was like abusive or verbally abusive or like made me feel like shit. It's just that, you know, it always brought up uncomfortable conversations, in the sense that like, if I wanted to switch medications, or if I wanted to pause on medications, or if I wanted to switch up something in my routine, they would then kind of like judge every single action I was doing as though it was connected to my bipolar disorder, which, as you can imagine, creates a very toxic, you know, environment. Thus, why I say, when you create, you know, an environment where you can share openly and honestly, like, you don't necessarily have those reactions. So for the past few months, you know, I haven't been on medication, if you watch this channel, and I haven't really wanted to deal with that in any type of way. In a good relationship, you know, I should be able to express that to my significant other, and they should be like, okay, let's look at your behaviors. You know, are you a harm to yourself? Are you a harm to me? Are you like doing any harm? And then like, okay, what can we do to like slowly work towards, you know, you wanting to get better? That would be like the perfect relationship, like, you know, the perfect scenario, like boom, perfect. Unfortunately, in the past, you know, if I would have said that, they would have been like, bruh, you need to stay on your medication, or we can't be together, you're gonna be acting batshit crazy. And then like nitpicking every little thing I'm doing, saying like, see, that's what happens when you go off your medication. As I said, that's extremely toxic. And unfortunately, that has been kind of more or less my experience. Now that I look back on it, it seems really, you know, straight to the point. You should have a relationship where, you know, you're open and honest and able to share everything. Obviously not right out front. Obviously that takes time, but like, if you don't have that relationship, like, maybe, you know, you have some other issues you need to work out too, before you even, you know, kind of get into including that person in the recovery process. What to do or how to help or support somebody who is manic, hypomanic, or in an elevated state. Ooh, you guys, these are like some big questions, and I don't know how I'm gonna fit this all into this little tiny video. When looking at any extreme mood shifts or any extreme states that your partner may be in, I think it's number one to realize that unless you're like certified practitioner, or unless you have like some credentials, you are not responsible, nor are you qualified to handle crisis situations. And by that, I mean that if your partner is in full-blown mania, psychosis, you know, is delusional, doesn't know what is going on, you like yelling at them, trying to reason with them, you doing anything is really just like, it's It's not gonna work. Except unless you're trying to, like, I don't know, keep them from hurting themselves or keep them from hurting you. Then yes, obviously do that and then get help. The biggest thing I can say though is get professional help, seek professional help. That does not mean call the cops. Please, whatever you do not call the police officer, because like someone is out of their, current mindset, just like not with the shits, and you call the cops, especially if that person is a woman or a person of color. Could you imagine if I was, for whatever reason, like holding a knife and yelling about, doesn't even matter what I was yelling about, it could be about cheese, nothing violent, and then the cops were called on me? How do you think that's gonna end? Not well. So there's actually specific numbers that you can call for different things that actually help with crisis intervention and kind of either walk you through it or has somebody come to you and like figure it out. Blah, blah, blah. But yes, call the right people, know the resources, have a little card printed out, keep the favorites on your phone. Now, if that person is not an immediate crisis, as in has their shit kind of together, kind of like how I've been for the past few months when I was hypomanic, just like not giving a shit, then I think it kind of just circles back to the whole, open honesty part of the relationship, in the sense that I should feel comfortable with disclosing to my partner, honestly, like this is what a healthy relationship in my opinion looks like. Hey, I'm feeling kind of hypomanic and I love the way this feels. I don't really know what to do about it because I'm not really ready to see a psychiatrist. I'm not ready to change anything right now, but I do know that my mood is elevated and I just wanted you to know, let's monitor this. I'm not quote unquote out of my mind or out of sorts yet, but obviously that can happen very quickly. And I just I want us to be in sync on this. That would be an amazing, perfect disclosure, and then the person who is finding out this information should not explode on them and should just be like, okay, I hear you, I understand, or maybe, I don't understand, but I'm listening. Bottom line, I think with Mania, it's again, subjective, a fine line, all of that, kind of case by case basis, but it is important to listen to your partner and not judge and realize that, sometimes these things are super hard and it's just a process to get through them. The same thing kind of goes for the opposite end. When it comes to depression, again, if it's not in a crisis situation, with depression, it's not about forcing your partner. Your partner more than likely knows that, they're supposed to go on walks, they're supposed to, shower, they're supposed to be eating, they're supposed to be doing all of the good things. More than likely the fuck that they know, but it's hard as shit. So hearing it from you or them, or just hearing that daily and then hearing it kind of with a ridicule and forcefulness, it kind of, does the opposite of what you want. In my experience, at least of how I felt, it makes you just want to go fuck you, man, you don't know shit, get away from me, you're not me, you're not in this, and it turns the conversation off. So with depression, I think, if your partner has been, not doing crap for the past month, hasn't showered in 2 weeks, the house is looking a mess, they're just not taking care of themselves, obviously an intervention is needed. But you should approach it more okay, how can I help you? Not let me force my help upon you. Ask them, what their needs are, what they can do today. The one thing on the list for today is to brush your teeth, or if it's to move from the bedroom to the couch, that's progress. And it's a small step, but again, progress, baby steps, boom. And if you can't do that, it goes back to my first point, or my first few points. If it's too much for you, then it's too much for you. Don't feel bad. You might want to be there for that person, but sometimes it's hard. I can barely be there for my own depression, let alone someone else's. / creating that open environment for, disclosure and to really talk about what's going on. That person therefore maybe won't feel that you're gonna ridicule them. They won't feel oh, I don't want to tell so-and-so this because I'm afraid of the backlash. They'll feel oh, I can come to them because they'll understand. All right, so this is the part that, I kind of really wanted to get to. So these are very specific. One, because people have either messaged me about them specifically, or, I've also done these things / felt these things. Do people with bipolar disorder lie or cheat? Or are they untrustworthy when they're in psychosis and when they, are going through mania? Do we lie or cheat? I can't really speak for other people. Again, I can only speak for myself, but I think that just because you're dating somebody with bipolar disorder or severe mental illness or whatever, when they're in manic state, psychosis, I don't think it's just like a natural thing for people to like, you know, in our nature to like go cheat. But apparently that's a common thing. Apparently lying during mania is a common thing. And I don't think it's the mania that's necessarily causing them. So let me explain. As far as the lying goes, I have, you know, omitted some information when it comes to, you know, certain things. A lot of that around like, you know, medications, or like, have I stopped taking medications, or like, you know, did I take my medication? Yeah, a lot of it's around medication. But when I'm manic, I'm not like just lying about, you know, like, I don't know, the lies aren't like terrible. Any lie isn't good, but you kind of get what I'm saying, right? The idea for me is that like if I have omitted information while feeling in an elevated state or feeling unstable in any type of way, or in general, it's because I was afraid of the reaction I was going to get, which again, typically revolves around recovery and around medication. And that's just because the relationships I was in, to no fault of those people, because like they just didn't understand and I didn't understand how to set those expectations. But it wasn't like an open environment where I felt like, you know, I was safe to kind of just share how I was feeling and like my feelings without some sort of backlash, or without them like, yeah, without some type of resistance. So if there's omission there, that's like typically why. And I would imagine, you know, for a lot of us, that's the case. Like if I relapsed last night and I just know that you're gonna bitch and moan about it, / I already feel bad, then like, no, I'm not going to like tell you that I relapsed on whatever was going on, because like, why would I do that? Obviously you don't want to get into the pattern where it's like, okay, this person can tell me they did this, this, and that makes it okay. You don't want to enable them. When it comes to the cheating part of it, I've never cheated like during mania. I've broken up with people, but like I've never just like flat out cheated. I've never really flat out cheated in general, like, you know, not technically, you know. But I often hear, you know, people talk about how when their partner is manic, their feelings towards the relationship, their feelings towards their significant other kind of like don't exist anymore, in the sense that like they, one, don't want to be together, or they're having doubts about the relationship, they need space, they you know, are either cheating, or they're unfaithful, or they're entertaining other people. All of that kind of circles around the idea of being manic. And I've definitely like had some of those complaints, not as it goes towards the cheating part. If anything, it's made me want to be like that person that I'm dating more, like not the opposite. So like honestly, I feel like, unless someone else wants to chime in here, like if you're cheating, like you was gonna cheat anyway, no matter if you were manic or like what. It's like not the mania that's doing that. / you also have to remember that like there's a whole bunch of like intersectional approaches when it comes to like mental illness, in the sense that like I have attachment disorder, I also have bipolar disorder, and a lot of times that gets muddled. So cheating in general is kind of just like, either you're just an asshole dick or whatever, or you have like some severe trust issues. And I say that not with a negative connotation, like not like, oh, you need to go, like you have daddy issues, like you really do. So, or that person really does. So it typically sometimes might relate to that, and like it sucks, but like, it's not the bipolar. When it comes to like just not feeling, you know, good about the relationship anymore, I think for me, it's less about, how do I explain this? It's less about me thinking that like, oh, I don't like this person anymore, and more about me wanting like, I guess, the freedom and space. I think mania makes us, number one, run on 1000% speed, and everything, no one can keep up with us, not even our own brains. So for me, it's, I have like all these ideas, these projects I'm working on, I'm super excited about it. And oftentimes to my significant other, it comes off as like, hey, I don't want to spend time with you, or like, hey, like I'm not making you a priority anymore, or like, hey, like I just don't have time for a relationship because I'm doing like 1,000 other things. And in my mind, even as I say this, I'm thinking like, they were crazy, it's overblown, like they like just need to like chill. And you know, like that's not always the case. Like I do think that in the past there has been times when I've gotten like a little bit out of hand with that, and I can't really tell you like why. I think I've definitely gotten to the place where I'm able to hear that feedback, even though it's hard and I don't believe it and they're liars. I'm able to hear the feedback, and then I'm able to like, okay, cool, like even if I don't believe it, how do I change these behaviors and like try to accommodate for the other person? Because like obviously, like if I'm missing all of these scheduled dates or like planned events because I'm like doing something that really at the end of the day doesn't matter. It might just be because I'm running on 1000. So I mean, like, I know that doesn't really like offer you any tips on how to deal with that, but maybe it kind of helps like explain what's going through our mind. I think a lot of times with mania or with any instability within mood, it's like, honestly, you guys, less about y'all and so much more about us. And it's selfish in nature in the sense that like, I'm not thinking about that person. I'm not thinking about them in that regard. And then as time goes on, I start to feel I feel bad about that. When I, in the past, have heard, hey, you're not giving this relationship the priority that, you used to, or like things have changed, or like, what's going on, and correlating with that, I'm manic. I start to feel like a terrible person because I still care about that person, but everything they're saying is true, that I'm just not giving it my all anymore. And it's this weird dissonance in the sense that like, okay, well, maybe we need a break. Maybe, I need space, like I'm obviously manic. I have all these things going on, and life just seems very hectic. Like, if anything, we care, or at least I have cared in the past so much to the point where like I am trying to save that person rather than like tell them what's going on, I guess. Save that person by taking a break, or breaking up with them, or just being like, I can't do a relationship right now. Obviously later then, to come down off of that mania, feel terrible about that decision, realize that like, what was I doing, and like try to come back to them. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So obviously like my relationships are still being hurt by that whole facet, so like I don't have any tips there, besides being honest and open. But it's kind of sad to say is that like I've never had a relationship that's that honest and open, / like I don't think a lot of people have. Is that like kind of bad? Yes, that's totally bad. Ooh, another one would be like, okay, so when you're manic and like, or when you're hypomanic, or when you're feeling in that elevated state and you are, or dating someone, I guess, who's in that elevated state, and you are first starting to date them, and then like the second day they're like, I love you. This has happened to me like so many times, and part of it's, again, the intersectional approaches of mental illness, or the symptoms that they present. Part of it is my attachment disorder, part of it's the mania, and when those two things combine, God help us all. But with that, I think that with mania, just to like explain it, if you've never felt it, it's the best drug that you could ever possibly have. And I say that in like all reality and all seriousness. It makes everything feel 10 times better. It makes, well, you don't really eat, but I was gonna say it makes food taste better, but it makes music sound 10 times better. You just want to groove and listen to everything. It basically feels like you're in your own music video. The colors are more vibrant. You wake up with all this energy. You want to like do all these projects. Everything feels amazing. Hence why like you really want to work on these projects instead of working on your relationship with that person. Sometimes though, however, when you're starting out in a relationship or starting out with a crush or whatever, when that person like develops a love interest during the state, at least in my experience, sometimes that love interest can go from like 0 to 100 within 24 hours. There's been times when I've been talking to somebody and I have only said like, we've only exchanged a few messages, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking about like, oh, we're gonna get married and we're gonna do all this, and like this is the person for me. I can see us together, like power couple, boom, dot. And then I also believe that these feelings are reciprocated, which is where I get in trouble, because oftentimes like they ghost me, we just stop talking, it doesn't work out. Something that's like, not so uncommon for like the first 24 hours. And then I get like super sad as though I just got divorced over a 20-year marriage. So navigating that, if you are dating somebody and you are worried about like, does this person really like me, or is it the mania? I will say that like, it could be the mania, but for me personally, if I've liked somebody, it's generally like there is some, like I generally do like that person. Now the degree to which I like somebody, and I thought this in my last relationship, at least in the beginning of it, I was very unsure as to whether or not, I care for this person, but like, do I love them, or is that the mania that wants me to love them? Sort of like the state, how you want to be in a relationship, but just not with that person, or you like the idea of love and you want to have love, so you kind of like force yourself to love somebody. I feel like maybe we all like know somebody or have had that. I think that's a normal human reaction. So just imagine that like on steroids, basically. So with that, it's just like take things slow. I think that if you have like bipolar disorder, or if you're manic, it's important to really really assess your emotions and your behaviors and to be honest with yourself. That's the most important part. Like, it sucks, but like, you know, deep down inside, you know, like, I've talked to people where I'm like, damn, I don't even like this person, but like, I just love the way this feels, and like, I've ignored like the back of my voice, and like, I knew deep down, but like, I covered it and like didn't really know, if that makes sense. So like, yeah, if you're manic, slow down, process your emotions as best as possible. You know, it might, you know, it's maybe not the best time to share with the other person that like, hey, you know, I'm bipolar and, you know, I'm manic and I may or may not like you. I may or may not love you. I may tell you I love you when that's not actually the case. When it comes to being open and honest, that might not be the best time to do that. And if you're the person who's dating someone who's in this state, you know, don't necessarily be afraid that this is always the case. Don't like still, you know, fall in love, you know, do all that beautiful mumbo jumbo. Be cautious, as anyone should be with their heart, but don't paint the picture as black and white, because it's just not. It's honestly super hard to navigate, super subjective though at the same time, but like, hopefully that explains sort of what's going on in the mind, you know, at least from someone who's like me. Lastly, I want to leave y'all with this. From the beginning, you know, I've said that dating someone with bipolar disorder or any severe mental illness, any handicap, any disability, it's hard. It's hard work, you guys, especially if that relationship turns into, you know, living with them or turns into a marriage, because recovery should become a partnership in the sense that like, you guys are helping each other. But for someone who doesn't have the mental illness, it can become taxing. Like, bro, like, I feel you, and like, there's been times when I've been mad at the other person, like, you're not there for me, and you're not, like, all of that. Like, it's not that person's responsibility. And like, I know it sucks to have to hear that if you're living with bipolar disorder, but like, it's just not. No matter how much, even if they're like, okay, I guess if you're married in sickness and in health, I guess that's sickness. But at the same time, there just comes a point where like, you cannot do it anymore. And if you're at that point, you know, searching for answers on like, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I save my relationship? Like, I am no relationship guru, but like, I'm like, there's just no answer. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. And that's like super harsh sounding, I feel like. But I think that another thing that people don't realize, and that like, I guess a lot of times people with bipolar disorder bring up, as I've stated, you know, breaks. Taking a break in a relationship is not always a bad thing. Sometimes the best thing that you could possibly do in a relationship, or do for yourself, like taking breaks in life is like important in general. A break allows that person to either become stable if they're hospitalized, to do whatever they need to do for their health, and get themselves right, because sometimes it doesn't necessarily need to be with you. It also allows you to sort of like reassess your own emotions, because you might not have a mental illness, but remember, everyone has mental health they need to take care of. So like, it allows you to get your life together. It allows y'all to like still realize that there's love there, realize that y'all care for each other, but at the same time, y'all need to be doing that in separate spaces. And doesn't mean necessarily it's gonna lead to a breakup. It doesn't mean anything besides the fact that it's a break, and y'all can define that how y'all want. Not everything has to be so rapid fire. It's not like, oh, why are we taking a break? Like, what does that really mean? What are we doing in this? You know, for people with bipolar disorder, for me, I've taken breaks in the past because I'm like, I don't really know how I'm feeling. And as a mature adult who wants a mature relationship, like, it might sound harsh, it might sound super shitty, but like, I need to make sure that I know that I'm ready for this relationship. I need to make sure that I like you the way that I think I like you. And I know that's super hard to hear, but I hope you can understand that, and that's like why I need a break. That's better than like being like, yes, I love you, I like you, I know for sure, blah, 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 blah. Or like, yes, I'm stable, or like, I have all these secrets I'm keeping from you. It doesn't matter, because like, at the end of the day, all of the things I've been saying, that's not sustainable for the future. So taking a break to like, just get your shit together in any area of life is not only like a tip, it's just like a necessity. And like, I'm still learning that. But yes, break, pause, just do what you need to reprocess, regroup, and just gather your shit and just, you know, get through it. All right, y'all. There's so many more things here that I wish I could talk about, but like, there's just no time. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you want to comment, or if you have any tips, or if you're like, I didn't understand what the hell you were talking about, leave a comment. And as always, please subscribe and turn on those notifications for new videos each week, because that's what I do. I upload new videos each week. All right, y'all. Peace.